Welcome to part 4 of my beginner's guide to drawing a face. What we're going to start off with is a whole set of pencils, because what you're going to need this time is a range of hard and soft pencils in order to render the skin, the shadow, to try to create a certain level of depth within the form of the face. So what I have here is a range which goes from, let's see, we have 2H, HB, B, 2B, 4B and 6B. A pencil sharpener and an eraser. Now you don't need to have this exact set, but I'll show you here why it's worth having at least 3 pencils. And what I'm going to do is shade 3 lines or 3 strips, vertical strips, which show the difference in what hard, medium and soft pencils can achieve as far as a tonal range when you're shading a drawing. Now you can go over and over and over these drawings again, and the best way to shade, in my view, for this type of a drawing is to not press down hard. So what I'm showing you here is shading where you're holding the pencil fairly high up, as I showed in my lesson 2 of this series. And what we're going to do is make sure that instead of pressing down hard, we simply slightly adjust the angle of the pencil so that the shading for the second layer is going to sit on top of the first layer. And when you do that, you can see the range of tone that can be achieved with the hard pencil, which is on the left, the medium, which is in the center, and the soft pencil, which is on the right. Well, I've gone over all of these strips over and over again, and you'll be able to see that the center and the right may look close, but in truth, the center can't go as dark as the one on the right, and the one on the right can't go as light as the one on the left, and neither can the one in the center. They all have a different spectrum of tonality which they offer. And for this lesson, I want you to utilize your set of pencils and have 1 hard pencil, 1 medium and 1 soft. So for this demonstration, I've used a Royal Graphite H, and then I used a Palomino Blackwing 602, and for the last one was a Palomino Blackwing. Now that's equivalent to an H, a 2B and a 4 or 6B. If you can use anything around that range, that'll be great. I'm pretty sure that you can shift those around quite a bit and still get a good amount of benefit. So even if you're using a 2H, which is what I use in this video as well, and a 2B and a 6B, or a 2H, or an HB, a 2B and a 5B, this is all fine. Now the first thing we're going to do is draw the structure of the face, which is what we covered in the last lesson. It's a more defined structure, including the lips and down the sides of the cheekbones and down the cheeks down to the jaw. What we're going to focus on now is the nose, and I want you to draw a little transition down from the vertical rectangle that we draw for the nose, and this will be going down the side of the diamond shape for the eye, and do that on either side, and then we're going to divide that up as a dark side, a light side, and on the top we're going to have a couple of mid-tone shading that happens there. Now if the light is coming from the top right, then I'm going to have a small strip on the right hand side of the nose, and that is going to represent the light hitting the nose. Now it's not going to be white, because what we're doing is considering that everything has a certain level of midtone except for the parts of the face which are facing the light. So you'll find that, just like on the video here, my nose doesn't have white on it until you get down to here, because it's facing where the light source is coming from. And we're doing the same. If it's coming from the top up here, it will be part of the nose that faces that source of light. So we're going to shade the shadow side of the face, just like we learnt in lesson number 3. Now, if you didn't do lesson number 3, I will leave a link here. And if you didn't do the other lessons, then they will be linked in the description below. I recommend doing all of the lessons from 1 to this, which is number 4. And I will have one more lesson for the beginner's guide for drawing a face from the front. And then we're going to move on to the face, doing a 360 all around the face, all around the head, I should say. Now we're going to start increasing the shading in certain areas. So in the pits of the eyes, this is an area where the light won't hit because it goes inward and light hits certain areas that go outward. It's which areas face the light and also which areas are protruding from the surface of the face. Certain things that have indents will have shadow. So underneath the eyes, the eye sockets here where you can feel where your eye sockets are at the top, that will catch shadow unless the light is coming from lower down, and it's quite unnatural for that to happen. On this model of the face we're going to add eyebrows, and for that all I need you to do is to keep them fairly close to the top eyelid. We're going to do a slight angle going upward. Now these are just horizontal rectangles that start to taper towards the end, not too dramatically, but just slightly narrow, and then we do an angle downwards, and I would say it's not too dissimilar from the diamond shape. So if you look at the transition of the diamond, the angle, you're going close to that. In fact, if anything, from the bottom of the eyebrow is the closest to the angle of the diamond, and then you meet that with the other side of the eyebrow. We're also going to include the brow from the forehead, which is hard to see in the image of me here, but it's worth including in this model of the face because it will be a more developed model. Now for the top lip, I want you to leave a certain amount of the top lip, a certain small strip of the top part of the top lip, and for that we will not shade. We'll shade it very lightly, but for the rest we'll shade darker. And then for the bottom lip, draw the shape of almost a tablet at the bottom. Now I'm not talking about an iPad tablet or something like that, I'm talking about a pill or a capsule. And we're going to shade either side of that capsule shape, because that is generally the shape of the bottom lip where it bulges outward and catches more light. This can vary, but for this model, that's what we're trying to capture. After that, we're going to include the hairline. Now, this is something which you can play around with yourself, take it from reference if you like, but for this, what I'm going to do is a hairstyle that is got a widow's peak and is not too long and doesn't protrude too dramatically. And then you continue shading certain areas. When the tonal values shift in certain places, they go darker in certain areas, everything else goes darker with it. So work on this model. Ask any questions. If you have any questions, put them in the comment down below. I hope you do well with this lesson, and I will see you in part 5, which I will upload in 2 weeks. So your homework is to practice the shape of the nose, to make sure that you use 3 different pencils and practice your shading with those pencils, to follow along this model of the face, including the eyebrows, including the brow, including the additional observations of shading on the lips, and then to start to develop this tonal value scale on your model of the face.